uh, I
Oh, good.
I actually happened to watch last month's First Thursday just the other day, and it was really well done. And I'm glad that we're putting these on the website, so if people aren't able to zoom in when we're having them live, then they can at least catch up to them later. So, and thank you for recording my opening remarks, because there are some things that people may need to know this month. So, first of all, there were about 30 leaguers at the Women's March on October 2nd. And they were in Redmond, and they were also in Bend. And then we were also represented in Nashville, as Kim and Jerry are on a road trip, and they found a march in Nashville on their way to Florida. And my daughter was actually marching in Portland, and the speakers there, one of them was a Jane. So for those of you who are freedom readers, if you read the story of Jane, one of them was the speaker over in Portland. Stephanie was not familiar with that. So of course I had to share my knowledge, which I learned so much when being a freedom reader. So October 16th, we have the fall workshop. And yesterday in my email box, I received the League of Women Voters fall guide, and that is just full of information. So the person who's going to be speaking at the fall workshop, his name is Garrett Epps, and there's all kinds of information about him in the newsletter. And it is, let me think, it goes on from for several days, and it'll all be Zoomed. And so anybody is welcome to attend the fall workshop. They used to be in person, as was everything else. And so you can log on to the League of Women Voters Oregon website, and it'll tell you everything that's going to be happening and the different workshops that will be happening at that time. So Greg's topic will be Discourse in a Diverse World is the name of our fall workshop. So there's a variety of things that are going to be of interest to all of us. So make sure that you take the time to pop in and see what's going on. The other thing we have going on is, of course, the redistricting. As we know, the maps have been drawn, and I don't know if there have been any court cases filed yet, but it's safe to say that this is not over. So, and Susan, I know she had submitted some maps. I know that I had submitted a letter on behalf of the league, and they didn't take my advice. I just can't imagine that. And I did find out I had received something from Senator Knopp, and I know he was on the committee. So I reached out to him because I wanted to know if there was a way that I could find out if I could see what the public testimony was, because when I was listening to it, I didn't have a strong feeling that there was anybody that wanted Ben to be in the Sandy Gresham area. And lo and behold, that's where we ended up. So I thought, if they're having these public hearings, are they really listening? And you know me, I'm just real curious about that stuff. So when I have a chance, I'm going to he did send me information. I hope to go on there and just say, okay, well, there were this many people that wanted us to be in this district, and there were this many that didn't, and you just did what you wanted anyway, which is kind of discouraging, but I guess that's the way it happens. So there's also biocides and pesticides study consensus coming up that should be done by the end of November. And I don't know if we're going to be participating in that. We kind of thought that the consensus wasn't going to be happening until after the first of the year. And lo and behold, they want it done by November. So we maybe will participate in that. And if you are interested, the Portland League had a panel on biocides and pesticides. So you can get that information also through the state league. The other thing we have coming up is I got an action alert today, just before we started, about making sure you contact your representatives. We're still working on trying to get the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act passed. Of course, I think we pretty much know where our senators stand. And I always wonder about that. It's like, if we know that they're voting in the way we want them to, should we let them know anyway? But anyway, do whatever you want to do with that. We have, what else do we have going on? All right, Susan, I've asked Susan to speak about the event that she's participating in on October 18th. So Susan, if you will unmute yourself and tell us what's coming up, that would be wonderful.
So October 18th at Drake Park at the on the north side of Riverside Drive. Mimi and I will be there along with 3 speakers, Phil Chang, Tammy Bainey, former county commissioner, and former county commissioner Mark Labhart, who is county commissioner in Tillamook County. And what they're going to be talking about and answering questions about is the citizens initiative to make the Deschutes County Commissioner seats nonpartisan race elections. Anyway, that's going to be from 3 to 4. And some of us are going to get there. The circulators with the nonpartisan county commissioners committee are going to get there early and circulate and try to collect signatures. It's been difficult getting signatures, so we're planning to try to have a few events in the winter. And what I'm looking for, and maybe particularly Greg, where did you go, Greg? What I'm looking for are venues so that we can have, thank you, venues during the winter, like at COCC, to have people come in, in a line, and be able to ask questions at various tables that are positioned with a circulator that knows their stuff and has a clipboard. And then those people can ask questions, sign if they want to, and then go out another door. So we'll be very COVID conscious, but at the same time getting signatures, because we've only until the last couple of weeks have we been able to have an event that we could go to and collect signatures. Like at the Sisters Farmers Market, we were able to collect 356 signatures over 3 days because we had an event we could go to. So that's what we need, is help finding venues to have more opportunities for those who want to sign to be able to sign. Because you can't sign online, you can't do an electronic signature. So that's our biggest issue, is getting those signatures of people that want to sign.
Okay, thank you, Susan. All right, a couple more announcements. These are not necessarily league related, but they certainly are of interest to the league people. So one of the things that they're having a virtual forum through the City Club on how do we improve the academic success of students experiencing houselessness. And that's a virtual forum, and it's going to be on October 21st from 12 to 1. And it has 3 different speakers, and a moderator is Zach Demers he's a reporter from the Bulletin. So I think it's something that we talk about, houselessness, we talk about affordable housing, on and on and on. And I think this might be a topic that would be of interest to many of our league members. That was why I brought it up today. And there's no charge for it. And if you want other information, just go on the City Club's website and register. And then one other very, very quick thing is our very own new member, Jane Kirkpatrick, is going to be participating in a live public forum about with the authors of The Eminent Oregonians. That she was one of the authors. And so if you want to know a little bit about Oregon history, make sure you tune into that. And that's October 12th at 5:45 on the Ben Bulletin YouTube channel. And our Nicholas Kristof, author and Pulitzer Prize winner, human rights advocate, called this book an inspiring and moving account of 3 people who helped create modern Oregon. So if you're like me and you're new to Oregon and you want to know about how we got to where we are, tune into that. And if you're not new to Oregon, just tune into it anyway. So, and that is all I have, unless there are any other announcements. I will turn it over to Karen, and she will introduce our guest speaker today. And good to see everybody. I'm seeing more people popping in as the time goes on here. And if you want to remind your friends who are not here that this program will be broadcast on our website. And it goes up, I think, within a couple of days, so that they can go back, or you can rewatch this and stuff. Karen or Susan, you had a question?
I just have one other, you said another announcement. I just thought of one, and that is Mimi had created this little cards to hand out that have the League of Women Voters, their links. And I found that really handy while I was doing these petition signing. And there's many people that are interested in the League. And I was wearing my little League identification bollard. And so I recommend that we all get that. Maybe Mimi could, send us the flyers so we can print them off, and because I think that's a really good idea.
Very good. I also found it very helpful because when you're going around and introducing yourself, when we were at the both the marches, and you didn't have to carry the big clipboard and the thing to have people do it, just stand there and fill it out. And it was like, here's a card, you could do it online. And people were very receptive to that because there are a lot of people out there that are interested in the league. And I think this is a better way to reach out than walking around with the clipboard. Okay, Mimi, you're up.
I just have one thing. I want to welcome Mandy Grishner to the event today. She's our brand newest member. She and her daughter who joined as a student member.
Yay. Very nice. Nice. Thank you, Mandy, for joining us. We hope to be seeing more of you. Okay, Karen, take it away.
Also, just one other thing, Joyce Durbin been in touch with me. I know that the education committee is getting together, and people are interested in education issues. You should know about that and reach out to her or to me, or anyone else is on, maybe, and then others on the committee. I think Susan's on the committee, and so that's going to be a very good way of being in touch with legislation, other things, and the issues, because it's there's not enough involvement in these issues and in the legislation needed to make the changes and facilitate the changes that we need. So,
okay, thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Karen, we're back to you, and everybody please mute yourself if you are not speaking. So the only person speaking.
Okay, thank you. And Milagros, before we start, we have a fairly small group today. A lot of times we have people signing on right at noon, but usually what I do is I have everyone put their questions in chat, and then I read them to you as you finish your presentation. And since we're a small group, I wanted you to give you the option of either having me read the questions, or would you rather just directly read the questions from chat and answer them?
If you can read the questions, absolutely,
Okay.
that'll be wonderful.
Okay, the other option is to have people unmute themselves to ask you questions. Would you rather do that?
Up to you guys.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and ask the questions, and then we can take it from there.
Okay.
Today we have a speaker who's very knowledgeable about the lives of Latinx people living in Deschutes County and the Latino Community Association. Milagros Aparicio is the Client Services Manager at the Latino Community Association. As you've probably heard in the news in the last week, the Latino Community Association has just moved to a new, larger location just south of Highway 20 on Southeast 27th Street. Milagros was born in Michoacan, Mexico, and moved to Bend in 2001. She is married and has 3 children. Please give a warm welcome to Milagros Aparicio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure being with you and meeting all of you, and thank you for your interest in our organization. Today is a big week for our community and for LCA. And moving to a new location does give us the opportunity, or has given us the opportunity, to expand our services. We already have a full agenda every day, but having a bigger space will give us the opportunity to house more people and hopefully reach more people in more areas that we not always focus on, especially one being an advocacy in different areas. To give you as far as advocacy, which ties with voting and researching, we will have an opening in the future, and moving to this space will allow us to open that position. So hopefully we'll be more involved, and hopefully we'll be more present in legislations and support more of that. Why I say it's a big week for our community. We are part of a financial assistance called Alivio Laboral, and Alivio Laboral is all throughout Oregon. It has been open for the last year and a half now, since April of 2020 due to the pandemic. Starting October 4th, they allowed for the applicants to receive a second round of financial assistance. And our focus is Central Oregon. So we decided that we were going to create an application for our current residents instead of them calling directly to an 800 number up in Portland or Salem, because the feedback that we got from our community was that they weren't answering the phone, which I'm not blaming. They're saying that they're receiving 40,000 phone calls a day on that coalition. And my phone, certainly, it's going nuts here once we announced that we were going to help putting people on a waiting list. That's how the system works. People who are interested, they go in a waiting list, and then they wait for about a week or 2 weeks, and then they get assigned to an organization. LCA is one of them. There's about 20 to 30 organizations throughout Oregon. What we're doing to streamline and help more in Central Oregon is that I created a paper application. I put it out in our offices, and then now people are filling out those applications, entering the applications, and then we put all the data entry on their system to alleviate and to expedite and help more Central Oregonians to access those funds. So as of yesterday, we just in the Bend office, we got 100 applicants in one day. Madras, Redmond was very similar stories, anywhere from 80 to 100 applications per office. That's why I say it's big. We're hoping to continue with this process until the funds. Until they tell us that the funds are now exhausted. We're expecting that at least 2 weeks it'll be available, and that kept me busy this week. So I'm not fully complete in other topics other than this topic that has taken over the week. I saw some of the questions that you guys had as far as how many Latinos voted. I don't have that data. Don't know how many local Latinos voted for the local elections here in Central Oregon. Unfortunately, many times my day gets busy with other things, and like I mentioned, advocacy and other topics they don't. I wish I had more time for everything. Hopefully we will. What I do find interesting, not long ago I read an article that the Latino population has increased, and we are now at 12%, which those results were from the previous census. And so it certainly feels like that also at work, and also with the needs, that COVID brought to our community. Another thing I wanted to mention is, don't know if you guys, so when I said I didn't prepare material, but I have things that if you're interested, it's available for anybody who would like to read. It's called, we created a report not long ago that it's called Latinos in Central Oregon. And this report actually tells stories about our community, statistics, and people's history and population, and what the Latino community is and what has done. And it's a summary. So if anybody is interested and willing to read that, I'm going to share my screen now. I'm going to share my screen for you to just have an idea of what that is, just the very first page. Let me see. So it's someone's talking, but it's muted. Karen, I think you were saying something.
Mimi has placed that link in chat so that everybody will have it. And I actually included that, I believe, in the last month's echoes, and I will put it in the upcoming echoes, our newsletter for November.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So that's one piece of material that it's available for everyone. Thank you very much. In the census that I was talking about, I found another thing I wanted to mention. We currently, as you probably know, we participated on the Welcoming Week festivities or ceremony, and we hosted 2 events. One was called Immigration, Time for Immigration Reform, and I don't have the presentation for that, but the main idea was to show why is an immigration reform needed in the United States. Another presentation we did was about the Welcoming Week kickoff, and on that presentation we also share stories about how our people are still being targeted by the color of their skin, and how individuals are being profiled in Central Oregon and in Bend in specific. So we share a few stories about that. I'm open for questions. I can talk all day about what we do, what we've been doing, but I want to listen of what you guys, the questions that you might have, so I can focus more on that topic.
The first question we had, Milagros, was a clarification about the percentage of Latinx people in Central Oregon. Was that 12% for Deschutes County, or for Bend, or for all of Central Oregon?
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna put the link here on the chat where I was getting that data. I can share my screen really quick. And so this is that's the population rates, and population by race. It's the Hispanic in whole Oregon, looks like. And these are we also participated on the census as LCA, and that's some of the reports that I also believe it's not completely. The last I've heard, it wasn't complete because there was pauses after COVID. It's been a month that I haven't checked, so I don't know if now it's been complete. I want to mention that.
Okay. So,
but this is where I was getting that report.
Okay. Another question that's come in is, do Central Oregon Latinos feel safe, both the documented and undocumented people?
I didn't understand the feel safe, you said?
Feel safe.
It's a tough question to answer because I'm going to just give the example of the individual who got hit and got assaulted by just because he was Hispanic. At the end of the interview and at the end of his speech, he said, not for one individual, I will say that everyone is the same. I will still love Bend. I love Bend. I feel safe. I feel good. I will continue to call this home because I'm not going to judge everyone just of what happened to me with one individual. That seems to resonate over and over. I think the inequalities exist. However, I think overall, either they want to feel safe because it's safer of where the place they're coming from. In general, I do feel that they have more trust and feel safer. But there's a lot of work to do
Right.
still.
And as far as the scope of services offered by the Latino Community Association, I know you've gotten a lot of calls recently, and I wondered, I've heard that you offer ESL classes. What other kinds of services are offered by the Latino Community Association?
Okay. Yes, we do have English classes. We have computer classes, citizenship classes. We also have a program that is called tutoring, and tutoring is one-on-one. If the individual perhaps cannot make it to the class, or right now their classes are virtual, but if they don't have computer now, we just recently yesterday got about 15 computers, and we're hoping to get more. So the hope is for us to provide a computer to an individual in need or willing to learn. And that was one of the barriers that we had for computer classes, that they didn't have an electronic to access, even to access the classes online. And so we're eliminating those barriers little by little. We also have, I'm gonna get my brochure here. So the Latino Community Association focuses on 4 main programs. One, it's called the Workforce and Training Education. And within that program, we have the English classes, tutoring, computer, job connections, resumes, helping with small trainings per se. If someone wants to switch their career or their job, if they, for example, if someone has only cleaned houses for the past 20 years, but now they want to focus in a different area, we could provide some training or some skills like computer and other things. We help them with resumes. We connect them with jobs. We normally have every 2 weeks we create a job list and we connect them, whoever is looking for employment. We also do translations. We do interpretations when the client is only Spanish speaker, or when if an employer has language barriers, we can also assist employers or clients. We have the other program that is called Family Empowerment. In that area, it's more my area, and anything that comes to the office, it can be applying for a tax ID number. Tax ID number is a number who individuals who are not eligible for Social Security can apply to file their taxes. I can help with financial assistance right now, also translation and interpretations, advocacy, or mediation. Mediation could be anywhere from housing, neighbor, employment, landlord, any mediation that the client might have, or we can also fill forms, legal forms. We don't do legal advice, but we help interpreting the forms and we help filling out the forms. We have other program called Healthy Families. In that program, we have OHP insurance assistance enrollment. We often partner with counseling services. During COVID, we learned that emotional stress and depression was hitting hard to our families and kids. And so we have counseling clinics as well. And with COVID, we transitioned to wraparound services. This is throughout the Tri-County, Jefferson, Crook, and the Chutes. So we have wraparound services. We assist COVID positive individuals with food, rental assistance if they need, or paying their bills if they need. And we provide groceries or food if they need food and medicine while they're in quarantine. And this is in partnership with OHA and the Deschutes County. We have another program called Youth Development, and with Youth Rising program, we have a program that is called Raíces. Raíces is a Spanish literacy program, and we have Spanish classes for our youth who are attending elementary, because we want our kids to be proud of their culture and also be bilingual. Many of our kids, including my kids, often don't like to speak Spanish anymore, and they're losing that culture. So Raíces is a Spanish literacy program. We have youth activities during the summer. One of them was called Amiguitos, and that's just like a club. And we also take them to outings. We partner with different community businesses and organizations like Camp Tamarack to take our youth for outings. And we also have within that program, currently we have funds, so we are assisting our families to pay for classes, after school classes, or the recreation classes, per se, swimming, soccer, volleyball, or any classes that the youth might want to participate outside school. We are able to pay for those fees. And so that's in a nutshell what LCA does.
That's very extensive. Thank you.
Forgot immigration. We currently, not long ago, we got accredited from the Department of Justice, and now we are officially able to fill out small petitions for immigration purposes, renewing green cards, work permits, and submitting citizenship applications, and maybe family petitions to some extent.
So incredibly helpful services. And I know you did mention that you are supportive of immigration reform. And what particular ideas does LCA have about things that would be very useful in immigration reform?
What use or what benefit? I'm sorry, I didn't capture.
What ideas does Latino Community Association have about what should be included in immigration reform?
What should be included? Everyone should be included. All the undocumented who has been here for years and paying taxes should be included on our immigration reform. Currently, I think it's DACA is here and there, but it only captures a portion of individuals. But most DACA recipients have parents who have been here for years, and those parents are without protection. So that should be included. There was in 2012, there was a program called DAPA that didn't go through, and that was to protect or to give some protection to parents of DACA recipients. I think there's Asylum right now and TPS, but those programs don't cover millions and millions of people who are living in the United States as undocumented, and who are contributing to the development and to the economy and paying taxes.
Yeah, and just so you know, the TPS that Milagros mentioned is temporary protected status. So it's one of the immigration statuses. I have a question here from Karen Rusing. It said, in the link you provided, is there a U after population? I'm not quite sure what you meant, Karen. Did you want to elaborate on that? You can unmute yourself.
I just wondered if it was a mistake or if it's intentional that the U is in there.
I don't see the U. Oh, the link that you provided is the U. Let's see. I don't see the U.
I just checked the link and it works. So it must have a U. There is a U there right after the word population.
Population. I don't see the U.
Yeah, I don't see that. Okay,
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see the U. I
okay.
keep looking and it's just it stops at population.
Okay, so I do have a question here from Greg Heacock. The Oregon Legislature's Joint Task Force on Universal Health Care has had difficulty reaching out to traditionally marginalized individuals and communities to assess what barriers exist that result in their not receiving the level of health care that others receive. I have to scroll down just a second. Could your organization help members of the task force to connect with members of the Latinx community to see what structural changes would result in a more inclusive system, providing services more widely, increasing the number of Latinx members as part of the healthcare system?
It is a wide topic that I'll be happy to talk about. A lot to say. And when you ask, can the Latino community help to reach, I can always say yes, but then the time is always a barrier. I want to go back to the application or the financial assistance that we've been participating for almost 2 years now. During the first a year of COVID, when COVID started, we learned that our community, we already knew that our community was vulnerable and had no health insurance. When we had the opportunity to help financially, we included in our application that question: do you have health insurance, or how do you feel about accessing the health system? Overwhelmingly, 95 to 98% of our applicants said no, they don't have health insurance. No, they don't feel comfortable accessing the healthcare system. Even with a pandemic, they don't have and they don't want, unless they have to, go to a medical facility in fear of the cost, because there's no access to health insurance. I even remember at the beginning of the pandemic, COVID testing wasn't available, wasn't for free. And even if they felt the symptoms, they wouldn't go to do the testing because of the fear of getting charged $500. And if a family of 5 was getting charged $500, they did not want to spend $2,500. So that barrier, I see it over and over. Even now, we have the wraparound services, and often we see families who were supposed to be in quarantine, but they have to go to work, or they don't want to tell that they're supposed to be in quarantine because they have no access to unemployment benefits, or they have no access to any other financial income, and they cannot afford to not work. So healthcare systems do exist, but there's many barriers: cultural, language, and financial barriers.
And where do you find in general that your clients access their health care? Is it through Mosaic Community Clinic, Volunteers in Medicine, private providers? Do you have a general idea of that?
Yes. Very minimum is private providers. The majority is Volunteers in Medicine. And I will say the first will be Volunteers in Medicine. Second will be Mosaic Medical. Mosaic Medical has extended their services in the last year and a half. So it has helped a lot more. It has expanded a lot more.
One thing, another question that's been raised is how many people does the Latino Community Association serve on an annual basis?
That's a good question. I don't have that. I don't have those figures, but I'm going back to just my financial assistance because that's the latest that we've been touching. In
Milagros, your sound, you went silent. Are you muted?
I muted myself, yes. Just in the last year, we helped financial assistance 2,345 individuals. And as of yesterday, just in one day, we so far able to put in our system 137 applicants in just one day. Not all the applications are in. We're continually receiving, but I guess the point I'm trying to make for in the end of these 2 weeks, that 2,000 could be 4,000, and that's just for one service.
Right. So you're obviously filling an incredible need in Central Oregon.
I want to extend the question that I have there because you were talking about that there's not enough staff to really do all the things that need to be done. So if you were to be a conduit for the Latino community or Latinx community, would you as an organization really be the right place to do it if you had more funds and if you could employ more people? Would that change things?
I mean, we will have, yeah. There's no other organization like Latino Community Association in Central Oregon. That's to begin with. Whether we are it or not it, currently there's no other organization like us in Central Oregon.
Okay, another question that's come up is how can people who want to support the Latino community feel safer? What can we do to help people feel safer and supported in Central Oregon?
Thank you for that question. A lot to elaborate, but a quick will be how can you support being aware of what's around yourself or what's around. No, that will be a good not I'm not saying that anybody has done it, but not closing the eye when someone is being racially profiled or not turning your back on that. That could make someone feel safe. If someone being attacked, many trainings that we had indicated that even if you notice something, you could interact with that other individual saying, oh, hello. Just by saying hello, the attacker feels that that person is not alone. The attacker feels that someone is listening or someone is watching. And the victim could feel better that someone is there to hear or listen. We have an accompaniment program that individuals, mostly English speakers, come with our clients to court. And the reason for that program is because many of our clients felt unsafe going to court, to whether they were the victim or or not the victim. They felt unsafe going to court and presenting themselves to court. So even though the person who goes with them is not a lawyer, it's not there to give them advice, the individual feels better if someone is listening what's going on, if someone is listening how they're treated, and if someone is seeing what's going to happen to them. So I guess just being aware will be my suggestion. Being aware, being alert of what's going on, and that to begin with. That's, I mean, there's a lot of things to support, but being aware of what's going on and support that way could be a good start.
I think that's an incredibly useful suggestion. Milagros, coming alongside really helps the person feel supported, but also helps whoever might be the perpetrator to let them know that others are noticing what they're doing. So, and I really appreciate the accompaniment program that you're describing as well, because it lets the whole judicial system, whether it be the judge, the jury, whoever is doing the hearing, it lets them know that this person who is there on their own is supported and cared about, and that they matter.
And that they're not alone.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's really important.
Mm-hmm. And with that program, we got to learn many things. We got to learn that people do feel safer. People are more confident to go through the process. There's also work to be done in the court. That the translator, could improve many things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great program.
Right. Because it can be very scary system, because it has a lot of impact on people's lives. The next question I see here is, are there literacy programs for Latinx families to build literacy skills in Spanish and transition those skills to English so family members can better support their children at home and participate as aides and support workers in the schools?
With us, we have 1 to 2 volunteers who were doing that work. After COVID, that passed. So it's not currently it's not active because of COVID and because the presence and the interaction with people. But yes, we have a community who is illiterate. We have a group of folks in the community who cannot write and read, and who also speak a dialect, which is Purepecha. And even Spanish is not their first language. So we do have, and we've done it in the past. Currently, we don't have it. We're hoping that once COVID allows us, we'll retake that program.
Right. COVID has impacted everything, the ability to gather, the ability to problem solve about the logistics of getting together. Hopefully we'll be beyond this. Okay. Mimi has mentioned there's a matching program for donations to the Latino Community Association right now. Dollar for dollar, any of your donations will be matched up to $75,000. So they do have someone providing a match if anyone is interested in contributing to the good work that they do. So we still have time for questions. And Milagros, your mention of Purépecha, I think that's from the people who speak Purépecha are from Oaxaca. Is that right?
No, it's from Michoacan.
Michoacan, okay.
Mhm. In fact, my parents speak Purépecha.
Okay, perfect. So are people from all over Central America? Like who primarily are the Latinx immigrants in Central Oregon? Are they from Mexico or other countries in Central America?
Many, the majority are Mexican,
Mhm.
and El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras has been growing a lot lately in the past 3 years, I will say. We've seen many countries, but those are the most relevant. Mexico, Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica.
Any other questions that people are having? Please contribute in the chat. We still have about 20 more minutes of Milagros's time. So I wanted to make good use of her time and get as many of our questions answered as possible.
I have a topic I wanted to touch. One of the questions was, how can the women's group support, or how can they reach more Latinos? Or what can you do? I think that was one of the questions. I think the answer to that will be more education to our community. Coming from a different country and not knowing the system could be hard for anybody, and especially with a different language, would be a little more challenging. So the adults and the parents who didn't go to school here don't know the system, and so many they don't know, even if they already became a citizen, because it's not in their culture to vote. Let's say they were here for 20 years and they just became a U.S. citizen, and now they have the right to vote because in the past 20 years they haven't voted. They don't have that knowledge. So more education and more outreach could be
Right,
one
because
idea.
the League of Women Voters does a lot of voter registration events, and I'm almost wondering if we need to go to the Latino Community Association and do an event specifically for Latino voters, where you could advertise an event, say, if people are interested in becoming or eligible to become registered voters and are interested in becoming registered voters, I'm wondering if at some point we could partner with you to provide something like that.
Now that we have a bigger space, I feel like I can say yes to anything because we have a place where we can host an event. So absolutely, we can absolutely see in the future what we have and what we can partner with. And this has been my experience in the past, when elections, either local or federal elections, come around. Most of our clients do seek our input to sometimes to fill out the ballot, saying, what should I put in here? Well, we're not allowed to tell you what you should vote for. But that tells me that there's just, there's work to be done, and there's education to be done as well, as far as both sides on any legislation that it's going through, or any measure that it's to be voted to, for them to decide what side they want to vote for.
Mhm. Right. And the Latino or the League of Women Voters does provide candidate forms. And just for the most recent school board elections, we did do some translations into Spanish. So there's also the opportunity to where we get information to you so that people can tune in to those forums that provide information so people can have more information about who they would like to vote for.
Mhm.
So here's another little question that expands on what you sounds like you're a very busy woman. But the one thing that you answered was how to help individual Latinos feel safe if there might be some harassment going on, or helping them feel safe through your accompaniment program if they're going through the judicial system. And this question is more about the broader community. If you had one thing to ask of us to support the Latinx community, what would it be? So what would you ask of our group to support the Latinx community? In some of the discussion we just had, you mentioned that people have questions about voting. So it sounds like we can get more questions or more information about candidate forums, so people have the information they need. We also just talked about doing voter registration events at the Latino Community Association when we're going specifically to your community rather than having them to come to voter registration events that might be at libraries or grocery stores around the county.
My answer to that was very quick. What can you do? If and I don't know if you can, but here's if we had a magic wand, what could it be? Help pass an immigration reform. Any individual who lives in the United States knows or has someone in their life who is undocumented. And by passing the immigration reform could alleviate not only the legal status of the individual, but it will help them to grow in many areas. Have better employment. It could help them pursue to buy a house, better housing opportunities, better education, better pay, the ability to alleviate isolation. The confidence in many other topics.
Okay, I see another question here. It seems that universities would have an interest in studying the various languages and dialects used in the Latinx community. Would people you serve be willing to share their culture with others?
I think so. I also think there's a trust that needs to be gained before they can share. I do think that trust is an issue, but once the trust is shared and once the community feels confident, yes, I think it is doable.
Right. Yeah, I think the trust you're mentioning would be a huge issue because depending on people's documentation status, they would feel very unsafe or safer. So the trust, and I think also pay. People don't have a lot of money, and if they're going to share their culture or give information at a university about their culture, they definitely need some reimbursement to be able to do that. If
Absolutely.
it's not part of a job that they're already doing.
Yeah, I have to agree on that one.
I feel like I'm monopolizing the questions a bit. So please, anyone who has a question, please add it to chat. So we have about another 12 minutes that we have Milagros with us. Okay, are there any Oregon legislators you would like us to pay attention to and support for the Latinx community? Are there legislators in the Oregon
No,
state?
it's not legislators, it's legislations.
Legislation. Sorry,
Thank you.
correction.
I will have to get back to you on that one. I have to make myself familiar with what's out there. I don't know what's out there, but I'm pretty sure my coworkers, Denise and Oscar, have been more present in these topics. I will get back to you on that one.
Okay. So please feel free to forward anything you find to me, Milagros, so that I could bring it forward to the League of Women Voters if there's policy that's being presented at the Oregon State Legislature in the upcoming session or future sessions.
I will, thanks.
Susan has another question.
Yes, do you have any candidates that you're thinking about putting forward for different local positions that you would like us to interview and maybe give some amplification for?
That's another question I could get back to you. Not familiar with who the current candidates are.
Any more questions?
I went, oh, wait, other hand. I have a question, Karen. Do you have a legislative action person that works for you that keeps abreast of the legislation that's either in the Oregon or in the national, that they could tell us when something is coming up, then they would contact us and say, we would like for you to write a letter on, supporting this legislation. Is there somehow that we do have a position on immigration and on health and on a variety of things, and we would be in a position to support some of the things, but maybe we don't always know what's happening. And so if you would have somebody in your organization that watches legislation, that they could reach out to us when it happens. Do you have somebody who does that?
Not in a full-time basis, but Oscar Gonzalez is the currently who's handling the immigration cases. He's the one accredited. Like I mentioned earlier, we are planning to open a position which is going to be called the advocacy position. We're hoping that individual will take that lead and will be full participant on those topics, but we don't have that individual yet.
Was Oscar on the Redmond City Council?
Yes.
His name sounds familiar. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you've touched on a lot of issues, Milagros. We've heard about health, education, immigration, policy. I'm wondering if you could speak a bit to worker safety issues, because a lot of the work done by the Latinx community in Central Oregon is actually pretty risky work and involves the potential for injury than a lot of jobs that might be based indoors or more office-based. And I'm wondering what kinds of worker safety issues you see come up.
Yes, the ones I have encountered the most with are construction injuries, restaurant, and because of the lifting and construction, and then mostly a muscle ache, muscle pulling, or fall from a construction site. And even though it's not safety, but it is, many of our individuals in the either construction and landscaping still not getting paid. So some contractors are still, or some, well, not contractor, not the independent contractors are the more are in risk because they're self-employed and they work by job site. Many I see it, and it happens to be around November is when I see a high increase of demand of individuals coming to seek advice on how to claim their wages. So even though it's not a health related, but it's insecurity, job insecurity as well. I see that every year. And those are the industries that suffer the most: construction, landscaping, house cleaning, individuals who are self-employed and that work on as subcontractors.
So in terms of unemployment insurance or workman's comp, it sounds like it's widely variable based on whether you're with a larger employer or if you're self-employed or working with someone who has their own very small business.
Mm-hmm. And also the self-employed individuals don't have health coverage. And because they are self-employed, they cannot afford healthcare premium.
Right. Right. So any other questions that people would like to ask? We have about 5 more minutes.
Karen, I have a question that maybe perhaps you can answer because you're in the medical field. Do you have to be a citizen to qualify for like Obamacare?
Yes. And that's what it depends by state. I'm more familiar with Washington State than in Oregon. In Washington State, any child, regardless of documentation status, who has not reached their 19th birthday is eligible for Medicaid, but it's Washington State that's made that individual choice. I'm not sure about Oregon, and I'm not sure how broadly Oregon covers children. Do you know that, Milagros?
Yes, it is the same requirement. Anybody under 19 can access the Oregon Health Plan.
Right. Right. And I know that with volunteers in medicine, that they only serve people who are 18 and older. So I assume all the younger children who might not be documented are actually going to Mosaic or.
Yes, Mosaic in Central Oregon, COPA,
Okay.
Children's Association. Yeah.
Right. And even though the Affordable Care Act is federal, I understand that with Medicaid, even though it has a federal portion and a state portion, states can actually have a fair amount of latitude on what groups of people and what percentage of the poverty level they actually cover when they throw in their own money from the state. And the other piece of volunteers in medicine, when they do accept people to be clients there, they have to go through an eligibility process and they have to not be eligible for any other form of health insurance. So it's pretty limited, and they don't serve anybody who has private health insurance or the Affordable Care Act. Any other questions? If there aren't any questions, I don't want to keep you any longer, Milagros, because we can hear your phone has been ringing off the hook while while you've been talking with us. So we really appreciate the time that you've been able to take to spend with the League of Women Voters here.
Thank you. I do hear the lobby now. With this new building, I have the opportunity to have an office.
Mhm.
Before, Greg knows, it was all in one. So starting with this new building, I have the opportunity to interact with meetings while I have someone else in the lobby. In this hour, I think she had helped at least 30 people. I
Wow.
keep hearing. Without her help, I wouldn't be able to even participate in a meeting like this.
Mhm. Will you be having an open house over there, or have you already had an open house?
Yes, we're planning to have an open house on November 1st.
Perfect. I will put that in our newsletter. So if members from our organization would like to come and check out your new site, that we can.
Thank you.
And thank you, Milagros, for joining us. I really appreciate your being here, for taking the time. You're obviously a
Thank
very
you.
busy woman, and you're the heart and soul of the Latino Community Association, know the organization really well and all the services that you provide. So thank you, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you for having me. Have a
Yes.
wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
And just so our audience members know, next month we'll be talking about water issues in Deschutes County. We actually have Patrick Griffiths, who is from the Bend Water Department and Bend Department of Public Utilities. So maybe slightly more focused on Bend, but I think he will be versed in all of the issues. Any other questions or comments before we close, Carol or Mimi? Doesn't look like it. So I think we can adjourn, and I will save the chat and make sure that